In the golden haze of a dying afternoon, millions of years ago, a shadow falls across the tall, sun-bleached grasses of the southern plains. It is a silhouette that has defined this land for 60 million years, a towering, feathered nightmare with a beak like a forged iron hook. This is the terror bird, the undisputed master of a continent. But today, the air feels different, and the wind carries a scent it has never encountered in all its evolutionary history. Emerging from the brush is a creature built of compact muscle and low-slung gravity, with two ivory daggers protruding from its upper jaw. The saber-toothed cat stops, its yellow eyes locking onto the feathered giant. Neither animal moves. Neither recognizes the other as kin or even as a known enemy. In this silent collision of worlds, evolution itself seems to hesitate as the long-dominant predator of the South takes its first, unknowing step toward the end of its reign. Before we delve deeper into this ancient drama and uncover why the most perfect hunters can sometimes be the first to fall, take a moment to join our journey through the mysteries of the natural world. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a chapter of Earth's incredible story. For a long time, we have lived with a myth, the idea of the terror bird as a slow, clumsy relic of a bygone age. We pictured them as feathered boxes, wandering aimlessly until more advanced mammals arrived to sweep them aside. But the fossil record tells a much more terrifying and impressive story. These were not accidents of nature, they were precision instruments of death, built for acceleration, balance, and calculated interception. Their legs, specifically the elongated tarsometatarsus, were designed for massive strides that could outpace almost anything on the open plains. They did not hunt with the frantic energy of a wolf or the grappling struggle of a lion. Their weapon was timing. They would use their height to oversee the landscape, and with a single, devastating downward strike of that massive, reinforced skull, they would end a life before the prey even knew the chase had begun. For nearly 60 million years, these birds ruled South America in total isolation. Because the continent was a massive island, cut off from the rest of the world, predator and prey evolved in a closed, stable loop. It was a world that was efficient and predictable. The terror birds refined their killing stroke, and the herbivores refined their escape, creating a perfect balance that remained untested by anything from the outside world. But isolation is a double-edged sword. It creates perfection, but only within very strict limits. The South American ecosystem became a self-contained system, a laboratory where every inhabitant knew the rules of the game. The hunters knew exactly how their prey would react, and the prey knew exactly where the threat would come from. It worked flawlessly for tens of millions of years, until the very foundations of the Earth began to shift. Deep beneath the ocean, tectonic plates groaned and pushed upward, slowly forming a thin strip of land we now call the Isthmus of Panama. What appeared to be a simple geological bridge was, in reality, a corridor for invasion. The gates were opened and the Great American Biotic Interchange began. From the north, a wave of predators began to drift southward, creatures forged in the brutal, ever-changing crucibles of North America, Eurasia, and Africa. Pumas, jaguars, wolves, and the formidable saber-toothed cats moved into the southern territory. These were not just new animals, they were a new kind of competition. The northern predators were generalists, products of constant conflict and displacement. They were adaptable, versatile, and battle-tested by a history of crossing continents and fighting diverse rivals. The South American predators, by contrast, were specialists. They were perfectly tuned to their environment, like a high-performance engine that only runs on a specific type of fuel. They were magnificent, but they were rigid. This evolutionary asymmetry meant that when the world changed, the northern invaders had a toolkit for survival, while the terror birds only had a single, specialized plan. It is a common mistake to imagine that the terror birds were wiped out in grand, cinematic battles against saber-toothed cats. Nature is rarely that theatrical. Their extinction was likely much quieter and more tragic. They weren't killed by the new predators, they were starved by them. As northern herbivores like deer and horses displaced the native South American grazers, the food chain began to fracture. The terror birds had spent 60 million years learning the movements of a specific type of prey. When those animals vanished and were replaced by faster, more agile northern species, the birds struggled to adapt their hunting style. When the prey base collapses, the most specialized hunter is always the first to fall. It is the price of being too perfect for a world that no longer exists. If we look closely at their anatomy, we see the fatal flaw in their design. The skulls of terror birds were built to withstand incredible vertical force, the kind of pressure generated by a heavy downward blow. However, they were not built for lateral struggle. They could not grapple with a thrashing, sideways-moving animal the way a big cat can. Against the predictable prey of their youth, they were lethal. Against the unpredictable, twisting movements of northern mammals, they were vulnerable. Imagine those first chaotic encounters between these two alien lineages. A terror bird strikes, expecting its prey to freeze or flee in a straight line. Instead, a saber-toothed cat rolls, lunges, and attacks head-on with a ferocity the bird has never seen. Neither animal follows the other's rules of engagement. In that chaos, survival does not favor the strongest or the most specialized. It favors the one with the most behavioral options, and the felines simply had more ways to win. There was a moment of hope for the feathered kings. One lineage, known as Titanes, managed to push north, crossing the bridge into what is now the southern United States. It was a bold counter-invasion, an attempt to claim new ground. But the northern ecosystems were already saturated with advanced, highly competitive predators. Titanes survived for a time, but it never truly thrived. Its expansion stopped, its evolution stalled, and eventually the northern dream died out.
The relationship between predator and prey continues in its ancient
Interestingly, while the apex predators of the South struggled, some of the most unusual herbivores found a way to resist. Massive tank-like creatures like the glyptodonts and the giant ground sloths survived the northern invasion for a remarkably long time. Their strategy was simple: they became too expensive to hunt. With their heavy armor and raw, bone-crushing power, even the most desperate saber-toothed cat or jaguar hesitated to attack. In the logic of the wild, risk must always be weighed against reward. Northern predators were optimized for familiar prey like deer and camelids. South America offered them something alien, armored giants that could break a predator's jaw with a single swing of a tail. For a long time, these prehistoric tanks lived in a sort of uneasy truce with the new arrivals, proving that sometimes being a fortress is better than being a fencer. While the giants faded, the small and the humble endured. Adaptability became the ultimate shield for creatures like the opossum. These small marsupials didn't survive by being the strongest or the fastest. They survived through flexibility, and in one of the most famous examples of survival through surrender, they even weaponized death itself through involuntary collapse. They moved north and south with ease, proving that in the game of life, being able to eat anything and live anywhere is the ultimate cheat code. As the Pleistocene epoch drew toward its close, the climate began to turn against the remaining giants. The world was warming, and the vast, open grasslands that the terror birds and giant sloths depended on began to shrink into fragmented patches of forest. The food chains that had already been weakened by the northern invasion began to snap. Even the most resilient armored giants began to decline as their habitats vanished. Then the final variable entered the equation. A new kind of predator arrived on the scene, one that did not rely on claws or beaks. Humans arrived, hunting cooperatively at a distance, and with a level of strategy the world had never seen. To a human hunter with a spear and a plan, armor, size, and raw strength meant very little. The coordination and tools of early humans allowed them to dismantle the last of the megafauna with terrifying efficiency. Science still debates the exact cause of the final collapse. Was it the changing climate that starved the giants, or was it the arrival of humans that delivered the killing blow? The truth likely lies in the overlap. Both pressures were lethal, and together they were insurmountable. The extinction of the South American giants remains an unresolved mystery, suspended between the forces of nature and the rise of humanity. Today, if you look at the wilds of South America, you are looking at a replacement ecosystem. The jaguars, pumas, and wolves that we consider icons of the region are actually the descendants of those northern invaders who crossed the land bridge 3 million years ago. The original rulers, the feathered titans and the marsupial predators, are long gone, leaving behind only fossils and shadows. For 60 million years, the terror birds were the definition of their world. They were the peak of a specific kind of evolution, a testament to what happens when a predator is allowed to reach its logical conclusion in isolation. When they vanished, nothing truly replaced them. There is no modern descendant, no equivalent animal that fills their specific niche. There is only silence where their footsteps used to thunder. The story of the terror bird offers us a profound lesson that resonates even today. Extreme specialization can lead to absolute dominance, but that dominance is a fragile thing. It depends entirely on the world staying the same. When the rules change, when the climate shifts, or when new competitors arrive, the very traits that made you a king can become the weights that pull you under. In our own lives, we often strive for a perfect, stable routine, but the history of our planet shows us that adaptability is the only true form of security. The terror birds were perfection caught in the wrong moment of history. They were masters of a world that was already disappearing beneath their feet. If you enjoyed this journey into the deep past, please give the video a like and share your thoughts in the comments. What other extinct giants do you want us to explore? Thank you for watching.